Hello, and welcome to the 13th video in a series on the tabletop role-playing game Bunkers and Badasses. In this video, we'll be discussing the Mechromancer skill tree and give a sample build. I'll give a brief description of each skill and my personal opinion. When discussing the sample build, I'll go through the skill taken at each level and my reasoning for each choice. Our first skill is Close Enough, which boosts the first few attacks in an encounter. I do not recommend this skill. More Pep boosts elemental damage. This is the bread and butter of this class. The returns given from investing in the mastery stat instead of the damage stat are enormous. Myelin gives shock resistance and shield capacity. It's a decent skill. Anarchy provides a decent damage boost, which will get frequent use. Starting off the second tier, we have Strength of 5 Gorillas. This boosts melee damage for both you and the action skill. This is good for melee builds. Buck Up allows the action skill to recharge the shields of adjacent allies upon activation. This is good for the team's defenses. Shockstorm creates area of effect damage after killing enemies with a crit. This is dependent on your accuracy and the rarity of the gun, but I still think this skill is helpful and will get a lot of use. The Stare gives an incendiary attack to the action skill. This pairs nicely with a high mastery stat and can possibly damage a lot of enemies. For the third tier, we start with Upshot Robot, which allows the action skill to conditionally increase its duration. Given how strong the action skill can be, this is useful. Potent as a Pony gives shield capacity to yourself and the action skill. This is good for survivability. Shock and Awe creates area of effect damage when throwing grenades. This skill will see a lot of use and can be very helpful. Unstoppable Force gives extra movement and shield recharge on kill. This is good for repositioning and survivability. Evil Enchanter boosts all elemental damage. This pairs very nicely with other elemental damage related skills. Kicking off the fourth tier is Explosive Clap. This allows the action skill to deal damage when it ends. On the PDF, this is mislabeled as Explosive Clip. Made of Sterner Stuff gives damage resistance and is good for survivability. 1-2 Boom allows the action skill to create an orb which can be shot to deal damage. I think this is a waste of an attack for a meager amount of damage, so I don't take this skill. Wires Don't Talk deals area of effect damage whenever an enemy gets too close. This is great for offense and survivability. Annoyed Android allows the action skill to move faster, which can be helpful for repositioning and dealing more damage. Fifth tier starts with 20% Cooler. This allows for a free activation of the action skill. I generally endorse any skill that allows for free action skill use. In the book and the PDF, this skill has 3 max skill points, but should only have 1. Interspersed Outburst allows for extra movement on the first turn. This can be very useful for positioning when starting combat. The Nth Degree allows the first attack to hit multiple enemies. This is a bit situational and is dependent on enemy positioning, but could be very effective with a high mastery stat. Sharing is Caring boosts the mastery modifier and gives the action skill a copy of your shield. Note that this only affects the mastery modifier, not the base stat. In the book and the PDF, this skill has 1 max skill point, but should have 3. The capstone is Make It Sparkle and allows the action skill to deal elemental damage. The elemental damage bonus only affects the action skill and not the player. Taking all the skills into consideration, I'll now start walking through my sample build. In general, I invest 3 skill points in a tier and immediately move to the next tier to try to access the capstone as soon as possible. I always take the capstone regardless of its quality. I start the build with More Pep. This is the main workhorse of this build and allows us to capitalize on investing into the mastery stat. At second tier, I take the Stare because a high mastery stat will allow the action skill to deal damage to more enemies. Shockstorm will help prevent this class from getting mobbed by enemies. Buck Up allows us to use the action skill offensively and defensively. For third tier, Upshot Robot will help the action skill to stay up for longer and deal more damage. Evil Enchanter will improve the damage of nearly everything the character uses. Shock and Awe pairs nicely with Shockstorm and can be used aggressively. With 4th tier, I take Wires Don't Talk to keep expanding the options for area of effect damage. Explosive Clap gives a decent amount of damage from the action skill as it ends. Annoyed Android will increase the effectiveness of the action skill. Down at 5th tier, 20% Cooler will allow us to use the action skill more often. Sharing is Caring will increase the effectiveness of many skills in this build. At the capstone, Make It Sparkle will allow the action skill to take advantage of elemental types. Next, I take Unstoppable Force, which can be very useful for repositioning during kill chains. Strength of 5 Gorillas is generally good for melee attacks. Up to this point, the skills in this build heavily focus on elemental damage. The remaining levels focus on rounding out the build, starting with improving the Mastery modifier and action skill, getting on-kill damage boost, then maximizing the area of effect damage skills. That's all for this build. Let me know what you think of this build in the comments below. In the next video, I'll discuss the 8th of my class builds with the Phase Locker. Thanks for watching.